Hello, hello, hello. Let me wait a minute. Let me just turn the hip hop off. Okay, so I'm back for more actually painting the model. I've decided on a bit of a change of plan. Rather than demonstrating a small bit of an area, then painting the rest of it in my own time, and then moving on as normally I'd paint all the flesh or all the armour together. I'm just going to do the demonstrating sections all in one go. So I haven't finished the flesh. I won't do that now. I'm going to do a small bit of the armour, then I won't do the rest of the armour. This allows me just to make sure I get this done in case anything gets in the way or run out of time to keep doing these videos. It also means that if people have any comments like, "Oh, I don't understand how you did that rivet there," I can do another rivet later on, a sort of Tzeentch Slaughterpriest Redux. So, gold trim on the armour. There's quite a lot of gold trim. The nature of the trim means it's kind of easy to get mess elsewhere. So I think this is a good one to get done now. Really quite happy with this gold colour. It is super rich and luxurious. Wouldn't suit all the models, wouldn't look good on Orc jewellery or anything on Nurgle or something like that. But for Tzeentch, I really like it. So just tidied it up, rebase coated that. Simple stuff. Going to do a direct wash of undiluted Agrax Earthshade. Because this is quite a rich colour and because there's quite a bit of detail on it, it'll take the wash well. I don't mind if it's muted down quite a bit by it, because it'll provide a good contrast with future highlighting using metallics. So unlike the flesh, this is undilute. Just put quite a healthy amount on. So I'm just going to go all the way around. I don't mind if I get it on the blue armour, because that will be recoated anyway. Watch out for bubbles. So actually, I think I may have thinned down this Agrax Earthshade at some point, so I may give it another coat. Obviously, whether it's thinned or not, this is always something you can do to enhance the shading and the effect of the wash. I'm just going to dab a bit out of the recesses. The blue, partly because I'm kind of thirsty and the washes taste okay, but partly because I don't want too much pooling in areas where it's not needed. Right, leave that to dry, I'm back. Okay, back. The wash is dry. It probably does need another wash, but what I'm going to do is actually just do some painting on it first, and then I can always apply the wash at the end to tone things down in the recesses. So what I'm going to do, to do a little bit more controlled shading, I'm going to get some thin down paint. Actually, I'm not going to thin it down first. This is a dark brown, and it'll be good for doing a little bit of lining and thin it down nicely, do a little bit of shading, bring out the details. So anywhere that needs a line, like so, just very carefully paint that in. This is sort of analogous to the old black lining, but the brown is less harsh, and obviously these joins are very clear here, so it's worth doing. Another wash would probably do the same job, but God damn, I love Windsor and Newton. Probably do more lining around the around where it meets the flesh or where it meets the armour, but that's something that can be done later. If I find the shading on the armour is provided an adequately dark distinction, then I won't need to do the lining, and that'll be good. So now I'm going to take the same brown, thin it down a bit, and do a bit of shading with it. Good thing about this is the brown is a nice combination with the colour after the wash. Also, again, it's a matte paint. It kind of covers up with the metallic pigments, so that's pretty good for getting some good shadows in there. You go on the lowest bits here and make sure I don't get too much in the upper bits. There's a little bit too much there. shade a bit at the bottom here, thin that down a little bit more. Just put a bit on there and then fade it up like so. The bottom might start looking a bit dark, but we'll bring back some brightness to this with highlighting the edges and the details. And again in here, so it's quite thin down because it is quite a contrast to the gold, even though it's sort of natural colour combination. Do a little bit more on these. The whole thing. So, just going to do a little bit more around these rivety bits here. It's just like a thin line. It doesn't matter if it's not a perfect line. You would get, hopefully get a natural bit of shading there anyway. How does that look? A bit more on the inside. Can't really see anything at the front, so it doesn't really matter about doing that. Okay. Back to the main gold to bring back some colour, and the base colour in this. This is, it's fairly translucent, so I'm not going to thin this down too much. I'm quite wary of it kind of moving around a bit too much. So I'm just going to put a bit on, like so, and then just fade it down a bit. Very kind of faint feathering going on here. Working with very little paint on the brush at this stage, because of the nature of the area, you've got to be quite controlled. So it's another one of those examples where the amount of paint you have on your brush is, in my view, more important than the consistency of the paint itself. Others may disagree. They may disagree entirely with that, and go watch their videos instead. You notice the areas where I'm getting towards the top of the model, I'm applying it a bit more heavily, as that's where it would catch some light from above. So these areas here, apart from the recesses around the rivets, will be fairly gold compared to the areas low down that will still be kind of fairly muted from the brown. I suppose at this point, when I'm painting the metallics, it's probably a good idea to consider kind of a sort of proper metallics like this versus NMM, non-metallic metals. I think the best I can say about this discussion is that NMM can just fuck right off. Okay, having done that, there is certainly a bit of contrast going on between the brighter top bits and the duller bottom bits. It's quite nice at the front, there's a bit of a colour fade. I'm going to enhance that with another new colour I got the other day, which is Skull Crusher Brass. It's basically what it looks like to me. It looks like something that really needs a stir. Jesus, I'll be back. Okay, right. That's looking more like a colour now. It's a bit yellower than it looks on the outside, but that's okay. Does mean that the colour will be fading a bit from a more reddy gold to a more yellowy gold, but that kind of goes with the brown and the shading. It's sort of natural colour change there. So I'm going to dilute this slightly as it's quite thick out of the pot. And just going to start applying this as a further highlight in the same areas. Let's start with these areas here. Again, closer to the raised surfaces. It's definitely a bit lighter, so that's what's required. And just keep doing that all around as before. Okay, so I'm a little bit disappointed with this paint. I thought from the outer of the tub it would be lighter and brighter than this. It would have been an easier highlight. This still needs a little bit more highlighting after this coat. What I'm going to do is I'll mix this with silver, do a little bit more highlighting, and crucially I'll start doing a little bit of edging on it, and then pure silver for the top highlights. Now I've mixed it with silver, the colour is a bit more like what I hoped. So what I'm going to do first thing to do at this stage is do some edge highlights over pretty much the whole area. I think this is important with metallics. There's probably some light and luminosity and reflectivity based reasons for this, which I don't really know. I think it's good to get some glints of light coming off pretty much all the edges, and also it's good with a sort of hard edged armour to make sure you keep that sort of sharp edge prominent. So I will even be doing the lower edges here. I find this works a good contrast with the shading already done. So just very gently run that over. You've got to be quite light with this. The metallic paints with the metallic flakes in do seem to catch the edges a bit thicker. So just running that gently along the surface. I think maybe back here will demonstrate this quite well. That's a good contrast to the dark shaded areas. So you've got to be really careful with this. But generally, because the edges are hard, you can use the edge of the brush quite a bit on it. You can get nice details like the little scratch here. You've got to be pretty careful with this, but and the little dent here as well, and this wee notch. Starting to glint pretty nicely. So I'll just keep doing that over the whole thing, then a bit more highlighting on this pale colour, and then finally it'll be some lining with silver on the very highest, brightest points. Okay, so that's starting to look pretty good. I'll probably leave the rivets until last. I usually tend to do a little dab of wash around the rivets because they're so small. It's easy to kind of get some of the highlight paints going in the gaps in the rivets and lose how distinct they are. Talking of stuff going in gaps, if you do happen to paint over one of the kind of joins here, get paint in the wrong place, just touch it up with a little bit of the brown mix before. So now thinning down the highlight colour, and just on the kind of uppermost edges, uppermost areas, putting a bit on and blending it back. It's good to get some really bright highlights with the metals. It seems to work well. You've got to make, get the effect of a light really kind of glinting off them. Okay, I'm going to do a quick wash around the rivets and then finish off lining with silver. Okay, wash right nicely, just a little bit dabbed around the rivets, and now silver. So I'm going to do all the rivets first because that is boring. Just dot a little bit on, take care not to go around it. Feel free to abort a particular stroke and restart it. Try and use the brush just to catch. The top of the rivet. So I don't really like rivets. Do make a mistake, you can try and get a bit of the paint off with a damp brush. It won't get it all out of the recesses, so probably be a good idea to put a drop of wash on again and just redo that rivet. I'll do that later. Okay, so now start highlighting the upper edges. Final thing, just do a little bit on the sort of top surfaces. So we don't want to be doing the bottom here, we want to get a little bit of contrast with that. So do it on the top and just ease off the pressure on the brush as you go down, so there's not an abrupt distinction. These areas are obviously at the very top were pretty much covered with the previous highlights, so you definitely need to bring out the edge on those. Again, I don't have the paint very thin down for this because I don't want it to run anywhere it shouldn't. I'd rather just have a little bit on the brush of not very diluted paint. Really focus on any of the points like this. So they would be the most prominent for catching light, and they're the kind of spiky business ends of the armour, so it's good to get them looking nice and crisp. These upper bits here. So it's a good idea if you can to get inside these edges a bit, because again it provides, these would catch the light and it provides a good contrast the turquoise underneath, and then they might be a bit trickier to do. And finally, these little spikes on top. This is a good aspect to really bring out the detail. Again, just go all the way up each of the four edges. Should look nice and pointy. That's a bit too blobby at the bottom, so I might have to sort that out later. Okay, I think I'll do. Yeah, happy with that. It's more muted, I guess, than the base colour, but I think it's a really nice combination of going from brown through kind of gold to a bit silver at the top. I think the brown works really well in shadows, makes it look a bit more antique. So yeah, and quite fun to paint as well. I think the using a diluted paint rather than inks in the recesses and getting that kind of more dull matte tone provides great contrast to the upper bits that are really shiny. Okay.